Canada just did the unthinkable. It walked away from Trump's so-called deal and dropped Palestine right in the middle of the battlefield.
Wow, Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them.
This wasn't just diplomacy. It was a calculated slap across Trump's face right before midnight.
We haven't spoken to Canada today. He's called, and we'll see. But we have made a few deals today that are excellent deals for the country. You know, we're taking in literally trillions of dollars for the country.
No response, no apology, and definitely no surrender.
And you're thinking, how do you deal with a guy like this? Are we hoping that we can get a deal with zero tariffs? Yes. But I always say how we can kick back, and it's not the American people, kick back at President Trump. Let's start onshoring everything. Absolutely everything we possibly can.
Simple answer, Mr. Ford. You don't. You beat him at his own game. Mark Carney didn't flinch. Instead, he called Trump's bluff and forced the entire world to watch.
He said Canada's plan to recognize Palestine would make it very hard to negotiate a trade deal.
Trump wasn't negotiating. He was threatening. By dragging Palestine into a trade negotiation, he exposed just how desperate he was to pressure Canada into submission. But Mark Carney didn't blink. He announced recognition of Palestinian statehood not by mistake, but with full knowledge that it would hit Trump's political nerve. The U.S. president tried to weaponize diplomacy, tying Canada's international values to its aluminum exports, but instead it backfired. Carney knew that Trump's voter base would interpret this as weakness if he didn't retaliate, so Trump blurted out what was never meant to be public. This will make it very hard to make a trade deal. He turned a global issue into a personal tantrum, and that right there was the first crack in his leverage.
Trump signed an executive order increasing tariff on Canada from 25% to 35%, with higher tariffs set to go into effect on August 1st, which is 5 hours from now.
Just hours before the midnight deadline, Trump pulled the trigger. He didn't wait for diplomacy. He didn't negotiate. He signed. A direct hit, or so he thought. Increasing tariffs from 25% to 35% sounded brutal, but reality painted a different picture. Nearly 95% of Canadian goods were already protected under the SUBMA deal. That meant this 10% hike only affected a fraction of exports. A symbolic move wrapped in political theater. What Trump wanted was panic. What he got was poise. The executive order was rushed to Customs and Border Protection. He wanted headlines, not results. Carney, instead of folding, watched calmly as Trump rushed into economic self-harm. The timing was designed to humiliate Canada, but the only thing it exposed was how badly the U.S. president misunderstood the math and the moment.
We're the kings of aluminum in Quebec. They ship the aluminum down, 25% tariff. They get printed and formed, 25% back tariffs. So my question was, why aren't we making aluminum cans here? Now, we're going to be making aluminum cans. They're going to lose $1 billion worth of business in the U.S.
Doug Ford didn't mince words. He exposed the economic bomb that Canada had quietly been assembling. Trump may have slapped a tariff, but Canada was building a domestic revenge machine. For years, Canada exported aluminum, tin, and steel, only to have it formed, branded, and sold back by U.S. companies. Now, that pipeline is broken. New production lines are firing up in Ontario. Aluminum cans, tin sheets, I-beams, all moving back home. Ford's warning was clear. The U.S. is about to lose billions. Quebec's aluminum dominance isn't just about pride, it's power. Every Coke, every Pepsi, every Molson can once formed in the U.S. will now be made in Canada. Trump targeted the Canadian economy, but Ford flipped the script. We're not retreating, we're rearming. And what's worse for Trump, those billion-dollar U.S. companies now know exactly who to blame for their losses.
They will not travel to the U.S. because they're so mad about the disrespect that is being visited upon them by Trump.
Anger doesn't stay quiet. It travels across borders, across oceans, into ballot boxes. Senator Tim Kaine's voice wasn't just echoing Canadian outrage. It was echoing a new American reality. Trump's tariffs weren't hurting Canada as much as they were hurting the United States itself. Canadian consumers started rejecting American goods. Tourism dropped. Business-to-business trust collapsed. But the damage went deeper. U.S. exporters suddenly found themselves locked out of their most loyal market. When 9 million American jobs depend on Canadian trade, Even a small consumer backlash sends shockwaves. Kane's words revealed the bigger crisis: reputational collapse. The U.S., once seen as a partner, now looked like a bully, and bullies don't build alliances. Trump's tariffs were meant to isolate Canada. Instead, they isolated America. And no executive order can fix that.
It's very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Carney had stated Wednesday that trade negotiations may not conclude by the president's August 1st deadline. President Trump has threatened to increase tariffs on some Canadian goods to 35% if no deal is reached by Friday.
Carney didn't just delay the deal. He redefined the deadline. While Trump was screaming clock ticks, Carney was building calm. By rejecting the artificial August 1st pressure, he exposed the political theater behind it. This wasn't about economics anymore. Trump needed a win, badly, and Carney denied it. The Prime Minister knew exactly what he was doing, keeping Canada firm while letting Trump spiral. He wasn't just negotiating for better terms, he was buying time for industries to shift, for provinces to unite, and for public opinion to turn against Trump's tactics. Deadlines are only powerful if both sides agree to them. And Carney didn't. That single move, calmly stating they may not conclude talks by Trump's deadline, was the equivalent of throwing the rulebook out the window. He refused to play Trump's game, and in doing so, he took control of the board.
All provinces, territories, municipalities, and the federal government. But, Prime Minister Carney's trying his best, but this guy will say something one day, and he'll wake up, and the cheese slips off the cracker, and then all of a sudden he goes the other way.
When a nation unites across party lines, regions, and industries, something historic is happening. Doug Ford wasn't exaggerating. Canada, for the first time in decades, moved like one fist. Trump's aggression didn't split them. It solidified them. Liberals, conservatives, premiers, and mayors stood shoulder to shoulder, not out of politics, but out of purpose. Ford's words weren't just political noise. They echoed a national awakening. Trump underestimated Canada's backbone. He thought a tariff would divide the provinces, but it did the opposite. Now each region is not only defending itself, but lifting the others. Alberta's energy, Quebec's aluminum, Ontario's steel, all feeding into one resistance. It's not a fight for deals anymore. It's a fight for dignity. And from coast to coast, Canadians chose to fight, not with rage, but with results.
We have taken a clear position of ending American procurement. $30+ billion have been denied from the Canadian supply chain. American alcohol is off the LCBO. And of course, in the energy sector, we are intentionally decoupling from America, working to incentivize Canadian alternatives. So more work to do, but I can confirm to the people of Ontario that we've fulfilled our commitment and the contract is cancelled.
That sentence cut deeper than any tariff. Canada isn't just defending its economy, it's restructuring. Lickus' words revealed a long-term counterstrike. For years, American imports dominated Canadian shelves. But now, Canada is pulling the plug on U.S. procurement, on energy dependency, on trust. This isn't reaction, it's revolution. Billions of dollars are being redirected to local alternatives. Entire supply chains are being redesigned. Alcohol, steel, tech, transport, once funneled through the U.S., now moving inward. The signal is clear. We don't need you anymore. Trump wanted leverage. Instead, he forced Canada to remove the very levers he was clinging to. That's not a trade win. That's a strategic collapse. The more America pushes, the faster Canada disconnects. And when this new ecosystem stabilizes, it won't just survive without the U.S., it'll thrive.
We are the global hegemonic player in medical isotope production, but we are intentionally announcing today a plan to double production because the global markets need more of it.
While Trump was raising tariffs, Canada was raising global power. In the middle of a trade war, one sector quietly exploded, and it wasn't oil or steel. It was life-saving science, medical isotopes. Canada didn't just dominate, it became the world leader, with new funding, new production, and new exports. Ontario launched a health tech strike that Trump never saw coming. These isotopes treat cancer, detect tumors, and save lives. And suddenly, the world's supply is flowing from Canadian reactors. Europe is lining up. Asia is expanding deals. Even the US, despite the feud, can't ignore the supply chain. And that's the twist. While Trump was building walls with tariffs, Carney was building bridges with innovation. It's not just about retaliation. It's about leadership. Canada proved it doesn't need to fight like Trump to win. It can outsmart, outwork, and out-heal him. All at once.
95% of the goods that are sent from Canada into the United States are covered under that CUSMA deal. They are CUSMA compliant.
Trump's tariff stunt wasn't just a failure, it was a statistical joke. The 35% hike sounded terrifying, until experts pulled out the numbers. Almost all of Canada's exports, 95%, are immune, protected, locked in. That means only 5% of trade is affected, and even then, companies are already pivoting. Trump wanted to punish Canada, but when the math hit the markets, it turned out Canada had insulated itself years ago. This wasn't luck, it was foresight, quiet policy work, smart trade compliance, and a refusal to rely on American mercy. Carney saw the danger before it came. He made sure Canadian businesses were ready. The result, a tariff that barked loudly, but barely bit. Trump overplayed his hand. He showed force, but lost credibility. And Canada? It proved that being prepared beats being loud, every single time.
There's always the possibility. This is under the president's discretion. There is a possibility of an extension, and certainly we have seen that that's been the norm since the announcement in January of tariffs coming. They have been postponed repeatedly. So there is a possibility of it being postponed, suspended, imposed, and then walked back temporarily.
This wasn't just analysis. It was a warning. Trump's decisions are unstable, impulsive, and often reversed overnight. Lori Williams exposed the chaos behind the curtain. Canada didn't cave because it knew the pattern: announce, threaten, escalate, then backpedal. Carney's patience wasn't weakness. It was strategy. He waited, knowing that Trump's political need for a win could collapse under its own weight. And now, with Democrats pressuring, American businesses panicking, and global headlines spinning, Trump's timeline is crumbling. Extensions, reversals, walkbacks, all still possible. That's why Canada never rushed. It didn't panic when tariffs hit. It didn't beg for exemptions. It stood still. And now, it's Trump who's running out of moves. The final irony, the man who built his brand on power, is now being outmaneuvered by silence.